that race seat. So we just got back from VF Engineering. We got the stock dyno numbers. For a naturally aspirated stock car, this car did pretty well. Did 480 to the wheels. And again, that's on a Mustang dyno. So Mustang dynos always read a little bit lower. We talked about that with Nick at VF, but we're here now, so we're gonna start doing the supercharger installation. They brought the kit back in a different car. Let's open it up and check it out. All right guys, so we've got the kit laid out on the table. There's a lot of pieces to this kit because VF puts a lot of time into making everything work right as a system. But these are the major components. Before we get down to the nitty-gritty of each individual piece, you know, typically people think that supercharging a car, you just slap a blower onto it, make it bolt onto the car, and then you'll get more power. But there's a lot of little different things involved with making that happen in a reliable way. So let's start off with the main piece, being the supercharger itself. VF uses a Magnuson type root style supercharger. They get this directly from Magnuson. It's a TVS 2300. I think 2300 is a measurement of some size. I forgot if it's CCs or something like that. And then VF designed a pulley system and obviously the top mount manifold to which the supercharger bolts to. So this replaces the stock manifold of the R8 V10, and this sits right there on top, and you can see it from the engine bay, which is another cool feature. If this thing wasn't so heavy, I'd show you the inside. So, like we were talking about over at the dyno with Nick, you know, when you supercharge a car, a lot of heat gets produced, especially with a root style supercharger. So to address that, part of VF's engineering was to put a water-cooled manifold directly beneath the supercharger, integrated into their manifold. So as you see here, the belt turns the supercharger, there's screws in there, and that creates the boost, and the exit for the boost air goes through this manifold into the engine. So as soon as it leaves the supercharger, it's getting cooled immediately, and you get that good cold temperature of air that you need for a good combustion. There's a lot of engineering that goes into this manifold. I think there's been several different types. This is now integrated, this tensioner is integrated to the manifold. This is all cast. So all these different measurements were made. Computational fluid dynamics was used to make sure the airflow is efficient. Now this looks like a pretty simple piece at first glance, right? Just looks like a flat piece of metal. But this has the most engineering put into it. This is the adapter plate that allows this manifold and this assembly to bolt to the engine. So this is where the intake runners are at. VF even puts a nice channel to have their own gasket put in. Also CFD designed. This is machined from a one solid billet aluminum piece. So, and as you notice here, if you look closer, it says patent pending, because that's the key to this supercharger kit. Besides the actual supercharger and getting the air into the engine, you have to find a way to turn the supercharger. So to do that efficiently, again, they mounted these directly to the manifold. And again, all superchargers are belt driven. So you're using the main drive belt of the engine. And in order to get that to be done efficiently and properly, you have to make sure that the belt wrap around the main pulley is the correct design. That way there's no belt slippage, everything's aligned correctly, and there's no belts that get torn up while it's spinning. I think this is close to 100 horsepower just to get this supercharger to turn. So imagine how much power is going through the belt to get that to turn. Onto the engine, this bracket system gets bolted to the block. There's a specific belt diagram. There's some super high quality bearings to reduce the parasitic drag. And obviously this bracket took a lot of engineering as well to design, get the angles and all the tightnesses of the belt correct. Another piece to that, to get the air into the supercharger, VF designed this nice manifold. I'd like to call it the Y pipe, shaped like a Y. They have some nice inlets, some feed lines for vacuum. Again, this is a cast piece. You can see inside here all the machining and all that takes to get that to the correct spec. So that also helps again with the airflow. Now you've got the air going into the engine, you're cooling it with that, but you need to get the water cool as well because it absorbs the heat from the supercharger. So now we move on to the cooling system. This is VF's own designed, roto-molded water reservoir tank, which goes in the front of the car. They include a bunch of hoses. They're not on this table, but basically they incorporate the stock radiators on the front of the car. There are 2, and they add a 3rd one, custom designed. With the cooling system running and everything like that, that's what allows those consistent pulls, high horsepower, back to back to back throughout time. So as you put more miles on the engine, the wear obviously increases. That's what VF's main principle is, to make this a long-lasting supercharger kit. So the first step of the supercharger process we're gonna do is get the software readout to VF so they can get started right away on getting the custom file for the car. And we do that with the OBD2 cable that they use and the software on the laptop. Email them a file and they'll work their magic. As we saw in the last video on the dyno, the car made 480 horsepower. That's already 30-ish horsepower over what we normally see on a stock R8 V10. We suspect highly, and I gotta call Nick to see if the file that's already on the car is a tune file. Nyjah's had the car tuned, I'm guessing, obviously with the other mods he's already put on. But Nyjah's gonna be expecting another close to 200 horsepower with this supercharger kit on. For us, it's gonna take about 2 to 3 days to finish the install. We'll get the manifold on there, get all these different components put on. The front bumper's gotta come off, get the cooling system in, and then we'll start her up. All right guys, so we went over the kit. Let's get the actual work started on the car. We'll get this M3 and the M4 off the lift and move on to the installation. Again, stay tuned. We're gonna be doing a lot of cool stuff. Follow us on Instagram at StudioRSR or on the web at StudioRSR.com. Stay tuned, guys.